Testimony resumes later this morning in the trial of a mother from Massachusetts who's charged with murdering her 3 kids. Yesterday, we saw Lindsay Clancy sob in the courtroom as a medical examiner described performing an autopsy on her son. She's admitted to killing her children, but her defense maintained she was suffering from postpartum psychosis. CBS News Boston reporter Kmitt is covering this trial, and she's been doing so from the start. She joins us from outside the courthouse in Plymouth, Massachusetts. Penny, good morning. You said this was the most emotional we've seen Lindsay Clancy in the weeks that you've been covering the trial. Just take us through that moment.
Yeah, this has been a tough trial to cover for us reporters. It's been hard for the jury to listen to, but it hasn't been harder for anyone, it seems, than Lindsay Clancy herself. You know, there's been a lot of testimony about her mental state. Through all of that, she seems pretty calm. But when we hear testimony about her kids, she loses it, especially yesterday when we heard from the medical examiner that performed an autopsy on her 8-month-old son, Callan. She was audibly sobbing. It's not unusual for her to cry during testimony, but it was so loud, it was actually somewhat distracting. And as soon as that medical examiner got off the stand, the judge actually called a break and cleared the courtroom.
From people who know Lindsay Clancy personally, what did they share?
We heard a lot of testimony from friends, co-workers, even family members yesterday. They all testified that Lindsay was a wonderful, loving mother. We heard from her former father-in-law that she was a protective mother, but he said nothing out of the norm for someone with 3 young kids. We heard from co-workers who said that she was also a labor and delivery nurse, so children were her calling. And we heard, probably most importantly, from a childhood friend who Lindsay confided in. Here's what she said that Lindsay texted her.
She had shared that she had been taking a medication that caused her to have some dark thoughts, but that she was going to, or had been tapering off that medication and was trialing new ones that would remove those side effects.
And that friend also said that she visited Lindsay Clancy in the rehabilitation center after the killing. She said that Lindsay didn't talk about her kids, but also she was told specifically not to ask about the children. And all of this is happening in just the weeks and months leading up to the death of her 3 kids. So we're really starting to move more towards Lindsay Clancy's mental state, where last week was a lot about the children and the ways in which they died.
And so, Penny, what's on the docket for today?
Well, on that note, actually, today we plan to hear from the psychiatrists who treated Lindsay Clancy, at least 2 of them. And this is going to be huge testimony because, remember, Lindsay's never disputed that she committed these killings. Rather, she says that she was experiencing a postpartum psychosis. And part of the reason for that, her defense says, is because she was over-medicated. So we're going to hear from the doctors that prescribed several of those different antipsychotic medications. They're the ones that talked to her about her mental health in the months before her 3 children died. So it's going to be really interesting what they have to say. These are key witnesses, and it could go either way. They could be helpful to the prosecution. They could be helpful to the defense. It's all going to depend on the questioning and what they have to say on the stand.
Yeah, it is such a grim trial to know that 3 children lost their lives. I know it's difficult for us to watch and for you to cover as a reporter, but Penny Kmitt, we appreciate your reporting. Thank you very much. And for our viewers, if you or someone you know is in crisis, you can reach the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline by calling or texting 988. We'll be right back.